Sweden. And I am the coordinator for the work on PFAS at Kemi, and also the coordinator for EU REACH restrictions. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit about first existing regulations and then what we can expect in the near future, because there is a lot going on in the PFAS area when it comes to regulatory work in the EU. Can you now see my presentation? Or? Yeah. So next slide, please, Sander. Yeah. But first, and Lisa was kind of mentioning this a bit, but I want to point out that something that I think is important to inform about, and that is information, or rather lack of information, on PFAS in the safety data sheets that should come with a chemical product. And this is something we get a lot of questions about, because what we see is that PFAS content information is often missing in the safety data sheets, and that doesn't mean that there are no PFAS in the product. The reason is that the majority are not classified, and that no consideration is taken that PFAS precursors are degraded to persistent substances. And therefore, I wanted to here emphasize that it is important to ask and make demands on your supplier, because, as I hope you will all get from this webinar today, that there are no environmental friendly PFAS out there. So yeah, next slide, please. So here we here we see a lot of strange names here, but what we have now, and when it comes to existing EU regulations, we have individual PFAS that are regulated in legislations at global, EU, and a national level. And while there is no broad legislation focusing on all PFAS as a group, there are various regulations covering a handful of specific PFAS. And a few PFAS are covered by harmonized EU classification and labeling requirements, and these PFAS are listed in the classification, labeling, and packaging, or CLP regulation. And the classifications refer to toxicity, to reproduction, and suspected to be carcinogenic. So, and a dozen or so PFAS are included on the candidate list, or substances of very high concern, SVHC, according to the REACH regulations. And the REACH, that's short for registration, evaluation, authorization, and restrictions of chemicals. And work is here ongoing to draw up restrictions for perfluorohexane hexonic acid and perfluorohexane sulfonate. That is long gone now in the process, being evaluated by the different expert groups. And discussions are also ongoing regarding the introduction of group restrictions of the C9 to C14 PFCAs and substances that may degrade to them. And that is actually discussed now between the member states, a proposal from the Commission. So next slide, please. Yeah. Next slide. Oh, is it? I can't see it now. My presentation. Can you see the presentation, or?
No, it just disappeared.
Yeah.
Do you share it, Tony? It's on its way.
Yeah. Now I can see it. Yeah. So, and then we have the Stockholm Convention, or the PFAS-regulations, and the Stockholm Convention contains provisions on persistent organic pollutants, or as we said, POPs, and it is a global convention with the aim to protect human health and the environment. And POPs are organic substances that persist. I mean, they don't degrade in the environment. They accumulate in living organisms and pose a risk to our health and the environment. And they can be transported by different media, such as air and water, across international borders. And they reach regions where they have never been produced or used. As we, you can find PFAS in the polar bears, for example. International risk management is necessary, as no region can manage and the risk that those substances pose alone. And PFAS and substances that can be degraded to PFAS were in 2009 decided to be listed in the convention and decision on PFOA. And their substances were taken in 2019. I got a comment here. Presentation mode, please. Or is okay. I hope everything is working for everyone. And the Stockholm Convention's requirement for restrictions are introduced into EU legislation in the so-called POPs regulation. So next slide, please. And from July 4th, 2020, the POPs regulation restrict PFOA salts, and approximately 800 substances. And the restrictions on PFOA in the REACH regulations that I showed at the previous slide will then cease to apply. And this restriction sets a maximum concentration of 0.025 milligram per kilogram for PFOA and its salt, and a maximum concentration of 1 milligram per kilogram for PFOA related substances. And it's also included, there's also included some specific exemption to produce pharmaceutical products and for all articles that was already in use before July 4. And we also have temporary derogations until July 4th, 2023 for certain textiles used for occupational safety and for the manufacture of PTFE and PVDF for specific applications. And there are also other exemptions until July 4, 2025 for photolithographic medical devices, and also for certain uses of firefighting foams. Next slide, please. And so now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the ongoing work in EU. So you can move then to the next slide, please.
It's on its way. It's lost again. It's on its way.
May I take the opportunity to ask a question then on your previous slide when it was about textiles and PTFE? I mean, what did that mean actually? Is Gore-Tex affected or?
No, it's affected in the sense that you can only have those limit values when it comes to, if you are talking about the PFOA restriction, or
Yeah.
It's only when you're talking about the limit value, because it's PFOA who's restricted. PTFE is not included in the restriction, but PFOA can be used in the production.
Okay, thank you.
So then you can have like contaminations and so on. Yeah. Where are we now?
And also, you mentioned on the slide before that, PFOA and PFOS related substances. What does related substance mean?
Related substances are those that can be degraded to PFOA, such as the telomer. We have the side chain polymers, for examples, and all those telomers. It's a lot of telomer-based chemistry. Yeah.
Now I see.
Yeah, but now next slide. Oh, so you haven't seen this one, or?
Yeah, we have seen it.
Oh, yeah.
We have seen
So
it.
next
Yes.
slide, please, then. And next slide again, because now, yeah. So now I'm myself a bit confused here, but yeah. Yeah, let's see. So yeah, ongoing work then in the EU that might be of interest. We have PFAS containing firefighting foams, as maybe you are aware, are the cause of many cases of contamination in Europe, both soil and drinking water, and we have seen many examples of that in Sweden. A recent study from the Commission and ECHA, that's the European Chemicals Agency, shows that the fluorine-free firefighting foams are generally available and technically feasible and have been successfully used in most of the sectors identified. And considering the concern raised by that substitution occurs for the PFOA containing firefighting foams with other fluorine-based ones. We have seen that so-called regrettable substitution, and the increasing availability of PFAS-free alternatives. The Commission have requested ECHA to develop a proposal for potential restriction of PFAS in firefighting foams. And during this process, stakeholders are requested to provide any relevant information. And the ambition is to submit a proposal in October next year. And I have included a link to ECHA's webpage where you can read more if you're interested. Next slide, please. Yeah. And this, parallel to this work at ECHA, there is an ongoing work on a broad PFAS restriction that I believe could be of interest for you. And this is a collaboration between Sweden, represented by the Swedish Chemicals Agency, and I'm coordinating this work for our part, from our side. And we have collaboration here with Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, and Germany. And yeah, let's see here. And during 2020, during this year, we are doing several pre-studies to gather as much information as possible to be able to, during next year, produce a restriction proposal. And the plan is to submit this then maybe early 2022 or during spring 2022. And then this proposal will be evaluated by ECHA as different expert groups, and also by the Commission. And possible entry into force maybe during 2025, but this is really a wild guess. But that is our plan anyhow. So next slide, please. Yes. And our work has two main objectives. And first is that PFAS should be managed as a group. And there are several reasons for this. And what we see is that regulating substance by substance will take too long to effectively manage the risk from these substances. And we can see that all PFAS in themselves or their degradation products are extremely stable in the environment. And some PFAS have documented toxicity, and with the present knowledge and based on similarities between PFAS, concerns are raised for the whole group. And human and environmental exposures to many PFAS occur, and combinations effects can be expected. And also that we have already mentioned that a group approach is needed to avoid regrettable substitutions. PFAS that are regulated are often replaced by similar PFAS. And then we have this that Ian was speaking about, that uses of PFAS should be limited to essential uses only. And we can see that these unique physical and chemical properties of PFAS have led to a wide range of uses. And as a result, the society has partly become dependent on PFAS in some uses. However, due to known negative impacts on human health and the environment, we see that only essential uses should be allowed. And we see that the term essential use must be clarified, and there are discussions going on. For example, amongst scientists like Ian, but also at the Commission. And we will follow this when we are developing the restriction proposal, and essential uses should be assessed regarding the availability of alternatives also on a regular basis to ensure future replacement and replacing after PFAS. So next slide, please.
Are you close to the finish, Jenny?
Yeah. Oh, I have some. I can skip the national regulations if you want, or I can just mention them. Or
yeah, I think we need to soon move into Jonathan's presentation.
So I'm have 2 slides for this, and then I can just and then you will have my presentations. That is kind of having the information in it. So if I just can finish this couple of minutes, I would just say then short that we have initially, as a starting point, we have a very broad scope, as you see here. It's fluorinated substances that contain 1 or more carbon atoms on which all the hydrogen atoms have been replaced by fluorine atoms. So this covers all these, carboxylic acids, and we have the sulfonic acid, those that are not regulated today, restricted today. And also the side chain and the backbone fluorinated polymers, such as PTFE. So next slide then, please. And these are examples of uses that we are now doing different studies on. For example, textiles, cosmetics, we have these consumer mixtures, we have the lubricants where the bike chain lubricating oils are included. And yeah, you can see that food contact materials, for example. So next slide, please, then. So I can just say that what I was going to tell you a little bit about is that we have some Swedish regulations also, but as you might be aware of, that most chemical regulations are harmonized within EU. But we have, for example, the Swedish product register that is not a restriction or a ban. It's more of information requirements for chemical products that are imported to or manufactured in Sweden. But then I can, you can read about this in the next slides that we will. That RISE will publish on their website after this webinar. So then I can finish now.
Thank you so much, Jenny. So there's a lot of things going on at the EU level, EU Commission level.